The vast expanse of the Aether's convergence pulsed with energy as beings from across the universe gathered beneath the iridescent glow of the star-infused skies. The convergence was a colossal floating city of gleaming structures and suspended platforms, hanging delicately within a nebula of swirling cosmic dust and stars. The stars themselves seemed to bend and swirl in the sky, creating luminous pathways, guiding the way to the central astral altar where the ancient ritual would soon take place. The city buzzed with the voices of 1,000 species, some humanoid, others utterly unrecognizable. Zilvorians, with their translucent jellyfish-like bodies, hovered alongside Caraxians, who had long serpentine forms and radiant, electric blue scales that shimmered in the dim light. Elner, beings of pure light and energy, flowed like ethereal rivers through the streets, their voices resonating in harmonic frequencies that only some could understand. At the center of this cosmic gathering stood the astral altar, an ancient structure that had existed since the birth of the universe. Its towering spires were made of an unearthly crystal that refracted the starlight into a million colors, each one representing a different faction of beings that had come together to participate in this most sacred event, the convergence of souls. This was no ordinary gathering. For eons, the altar had been used to commune with the stars themselves, to glean ancient knowledge from the celestial bodies, and to harness the energies of the universe in order to solve its most pressing dilemmas. The stakes could not be higher. The very fate of the universe, and perhaps even Earth, was about to be decided here. Amid the crowd of alien species, all eyes were now on one figure, a human girl, barely 16, standing at the base of the altar. She was an anomaly here, a being from Earth, a species barely known beyond their own world. Yet she was chosen for the most crucial tasks, to communicate with the stars and unlock their secrets. She was, after all, the only one who could hear the voices of the stars, the only one capable of interpreting their cryptic messages. The elders of the convergence, ancient beings who had lived through countless cycles of galactic history, whispered among themselves. "She is the one," murmured Elder Zorak, his voice a deep, rumbling vibration. "The human girl. She alone held the key." As the ritual began, the city around her seemed to hold its breath, and the stars above shimmered brighter, as if they, too, were watching. The girl, whose name was Asha, stepped forward, raising her arms toward the heavens. In a single moment, the universe seemed to pause, waiting for her to commune with the stars, and reveal the secret that could save Earth from impending destruction. The sky crackled with cosmic energy, and the voices of 1,000 worlds whispered in Asha's mind. And thus, the fate of Earth and all life within this corner of the universe rested in the hands of a girl who communed with the stars. Asha stood in stark contrast to the towering, regal figures around her, while the other participants in the convergence of souls were preparing with deep reverence and intricate rituals. Asha simply sat cross-legged on the ground, her hoodie pulled over her head, and her sneakers scuffed from the long journey across space. She was the only human among beings whose civilization spanned eons, and it showed. The alien delegations, resplendent in their ceremonial garb, took one look at her and subtly tilted their heads in confusion. Asha wasn't here for grandeur. She wasn't here to impress anyone. She had no ancient wisdom or celestial power like the other participants. Instead, she carried with her the simple, grounded nature of someone who had grown up on Earth, an anomaly in a place where the stars had shaped history for millennia. While the Elner, beings of pure light, were meditating in perfect harmony, focusing on their cosmic energies, Asha fumbled with her phone, checking messages from her family back home. The buzzing notification on her screen, a reminder to buy groceries, was a stark reminder that while she was in this grand, otherworldly city, she was still very much human. "Are you meditating, human?" asked one of the Caraxians, its massive, serpentine body coiling as it observed her from a distance. Its voice, a low hiss, was filled with mild curiosity, if not a bit of disdain. Asha glanced up at the creature, unfazed, and gave a casual shrug. "Nah, just checking on Earth stuff. You know, priorities," she replied, tapping a few buttons on her phone before tucking it back into her pocket. The Caraxian blinked in confusion, its scales rippling in an odd pattern, but Asha didn't seem to care. She stood up, brushing the dust off her hoodie as she stretched lazily. There were high-ranking beings, elders who had studied the stars for eons, all around her, but Asha had no interest in the formalities. She didn't even know what half of the rituals meant, and frankly, she didn't care to learn them. She had one task: listen to the stars and save Earth. Nothing more, nothing less. As she walked toward the astral altar, the other delegates and competitors watched in disbelief. Some were intrigued by her unorthodox approach, while others shook their heads, thinking that the ritual was too serious for such casualness. Asha could feel the weight of their judgment, but she didn't flinch. She was an underdog, a human in a galaxy of beings with immeasurable power, and it had never bothered her. Maybe it was because she knew one thing no one else did. Earth wasn't going to be saved by following the rules. It was going to be saved by doing things no one expected. And as she reached the altar, she threw one last grin at the watching crowd. "All right," she said with a wink, "let's talk to the stars." The rest of the universe might have underestimated her, but Asha was about to show them that sometimes being human was the greatest strength of all. As Asha approached the astral altar, the air around her crackled with cosmic energy, a tangible force that made her skin tingle. The ritual was about to begin, and she was the last one to step forward. Her heart thudded in her chest as she looked out over the sea of alien faces, some curious, others dismissive. Earth was hardly a blip on the galactic radar, and yet here she was, standing at the center of a cosmic event that could decide the fate of her planet. The Elders, ancient beings who had been witnesses to countless millennia of galactic history, were perched high above the altar. Their eyes glowed with a cold, ethereal light. Elder Theric, the eldest and most powerful of them all, watched with great interest. His species, the Othrix, had lived for eons, their knowledge of the stars unrivaled. They were the ones who had devised the ritual that Asha was about to partake in. And yet, there was something in his gaze that sent a chill down her spine. "She is human." Theric's voice resonated through the ether, the sound rich with centuries of experience. "It is unimaginable that she will be the one to interpret the will of the stars. She knows nothing of their ways." Next to him, the Seraphim, a race of towering, angelic beings with translucent wings, nodded in agreement. The ritual requires more than a connection to the stars. It requires discipline, knowledge, and mastery of cosmic forces. Can a human, with no understanding of our ways, possibly comprehend what we ask? Asha's heart pounded louder in her chest, but she stood tall. She was surrounded by beings who had lived through the rise and fall of galaxies, whose minds could process entire star systems in an instant. They had dedicated their entire lives to study the cosmos, yet none of them could hear the stars the way she could. The odds were impossibly stacked against her. The Othrix believed that only those who followed the ancient rituals, those who had honed their mental and physical disciplines over centuries, could commune with the stars and unlock their secrets. Asha had none of that. She had no centuries of training. She hadn't even followed the rituals that had been passed down for eons. All she had was her strange ability to hear the stars' whispers, an ability no one could explain. And that ability had made her the last hope for Earth. The challenge before her was simple, yet terrifying. She had to commune with the stars, speak to them in a way that would unlock their power, and ask them to save Earth. But with the universe watching, the Elders' doubts weighing heavily on her, and the stars themselves remaining silent, how could she possibly succeed? As the ritual began, Karna, a fierce and skilled Xenon warrior from the distant Vashan sector, stepped forward, his icy gaze locked onto Asha. He had been groomed for this moment his entire life, his people believing that only the strongest and most disciplined could communicate with the stars. He had studied for centuries and was ready to take his place among the Elders as a figure of immense power. "You are nothing but an impudent child, human," Karna sneered, his voice like the sound of grinding stone. "You don't even belong here. Let me show you what real strength and understanding look like." Asha's jaw tightened. She hadn't come this far, to back down now. The odds were against her, sure, but Earth had always been an underdog, yet it still survived. And maybe, just maybe, it was that same underdog spirit that could communicate with the stars. With one last glance at Karna and the Elders, Asha closed her eyes. She reached out, connecting not with the ancient traditions or centuries of knowledge, but with a pure, untainted human connection that allowed her to hear the stars in ways no one else could. The challenge had begun. The universe held its breath. Would Asha succeed, or would the stars remain silent, condemning Earth to its fate? And would the galaxy continue to believe that only tradition could save them? Or would this unlikely human show them that sometimes it took a different kind of strength to understand the cosmos? As the ritual began to unfold, Asha stood off to the side, away from the solemn figures of the galaxy's most powerful beings. The elders watched her, their glowing eyes keen with judgment, and Karna, the Xenon warrior, stood nearby, ready to demonstrate his discipline and strength. But Asha, she had other plans. While the ancient cosmic ritual was about to begin, the other participants were quietly meditating, focused on channeling their energies or fine-tuning their celestial instruments. Asha, however, was doing something decidedly different. She pulled out her phone, flicking through notifications, and checked the time. Ugh, I really hope I'm not missing my favorite show back on Earth, she muttered to herself, half laughing at the absurdity of the situation. The Caraxian next to her, a towering, serpentine creature with glowing, ethereal scales, watched in confusion as she placed her phone back into her pocket. Its voice, vibrating with curiosity, hissed, "Are you not preparing for the ritual? You are not focused on the stars, on the cosmic energy, as we have taught." Asha gave the creature a cheeky grin, unbothered by the weight of his stare. "Oh, I'm preparing all right. Just got to check in with Earth now and then. You know, a little me time before the universe-saving stuff." She stretched casually, her loose hoodie swaying as she looked up at the endless sky, the stars shimmering as if they were teasing her to do something dramatic. Instead, she rolled her shoulders and gave the creature a thumbs up. "I'm all good. No pressure." The Caraxian blinked several times, its many eyes swirling in a mix of disbelief and confusion. It opened its mouth to speak again, but was interrupted by a low, amused chuckle from the Seraphim, a towering angelic being who hovered just above the ground, its wings shimmering with cosmic energy. "You are unusual human," the Seraphim said, its voice light, but filled with a note of genuine amusement. "You do not seem to grasp the gravity of this event." Asha turned to face the Seraphim with a smirk. "Gravity? Nah, I've got it under control." She took a few exaggerated steps in a mock dance, pretending to stumble as she swirled her arms in the air. "I'm just warming up, you know? Gotta keep things light before the heavy lifting starts." The Seraphim's expression shifted to a mixture of amusement and intrigue. It wasn't often that anyone could make the grand rituals of the Convergence feel lighthearted, but here she was, a girl in sneakers, standing amidst beings of immense power, casually chatting as though she were walking to the grocery store. Even the Afriks, those ancient and powerful creatures who controlled the fate of the galaxy, exchanged glances among themselves. They had lived for millennia, their lives steeped in cosmic weight and power, but this human's nonchalance was entirely foreign. Elder Theric, who had overseen countless rituals, shook his head ever so slightly, his eyes narrowing in disapproval. "This human's approach, it is reckless," he muttered, as if unaware of the words leaving his mouth. "She has no respect for the gravity of the stars." And yet, Asha was unfazed. As the stars above her began to pulse with energy, signaling the beginning of the ritual, she yawned dramatically. "Well," she said, stretching her arms wide, "time to talk to some stars. This should be interesting." She stood at the astral altar, surrounded by beings of ancient wisdom, their method precise and rigid, while Asha simply stood there, as casual as if she were at the local coffee shop. Her unpredictability had already turned the ritual into something else entirely, a far cry from the solemn, structured ceremony everyone had expected. The entire galaxy was waiting to see what she would do. Would she be able to bridge the gap between her human quirks and the cosmic power of the stars? Or would she fall short, just like they all thought she would? But Asha, she wasn't worried. She had her own way of doing things, and it was time for the stars to hear her out. "All right, stars," she muttered to herself with a grin. "Let's see what you've got." Asha stood in the center of the astral altar, where the stars shimmered overhead and the vastness of the universe pressed down on her. The ritual had begun, and the challenge was clear. She needed to commune with the stars in a way that would unlock the ancient cosmic knowledge required to save Earth. But the first part of the ritual wasn't exactly as straightforward as she'd imagined. She wasn't just facing the stars. She was facing beings whose abilities were tied to thousands of years of training, experience, and cosmic mastery. And one by one, the other participants, each with their own unique, overwhelming power, stepped up to test her abilities. They weren't just going to let a young human take the prize. The first challenge came in the form of Zotter, a seraphim warrior whose ethereal wings glowed with the energy of 1,000 suns. His power over cosmic winds was legendary. With mere flap of his wings, he could create gusts strong enough to level cities. He stepped forward with a serene expression, ready to showcase his mastery of cosmic forces. "You will need more than words to pass this test, human," Zotter said, his voice carrying a melodic resonance, echoing through the altar. "You must prove your connection to the cosmos through strength." Asha raised an eyebrow, amused. "Strength, huh? You sure you don't want to make it a dance-off?" Zotter blinked in confusion as Asha stepped forward, cracking her knuckles with exaggerated flair. She wasn't about to summon the power of the stars through brute force. That was not her style. Instead, she had the only thing that felt right. She pulled out a small handheld fan, the kind you'd find at a beachside shop, and started fanning herself as if the overwhelming cosmic pressure didn't even exist. The wind around her picked up, swirling and intensifying with Zotter's movements, but Asha wasn't bothered. She fanned herself slowly, like a queen enjoying a lazy afternoon in the sun, while Zotter struggled against the wind. With each of his attempts to control the cosmic winds, he pushed harder, but the effortless movement of Asha's fan somehow began to redirect the gusts, swirling them back toward him. Zotter's eyes widened in disbelief as the winds he had summoned twisted in on themselves, making it harder for him to maintain control. Asha tilted her head, looking up at him with an innocent smile. "Seems like you need a little more practice, huh? Maybe next time you can try a lighter breeze." The crowd of ancient beings gasped. Zotter, the seraphim warrior of cosmic wind, defeated by a handheld fan. He faltered for a moment before flapping his wings once more, dissipating the wind with a wave of his hand. "This is not what I expected," he muttered, clearly unsettled. Asha, however, seemed entirely at ease. "Hey, I told you, I like to keep it cool." As she moved on to the next stage of the ritual, Karnak, the Xenon warrior, stepped forward, his body radiating with the intensity of his power. He was embodiment of traditional strength, a being of solid muscle and energy, honed by centuries of battle. His people believed that only the strongest could commune with the stars, and Asha was about to prove them wrong. Karnak gave her a disdainful look, sizing her up with his burning gaze. "You will not survive this challenge. Human, the stars choose only those worthy of their strength. Can you match mine?" Asha rolled her shoulders, cracking her neck. She didn't have cosmic muscle like Karnak. She didn't have his battle-hardened skill. But she had something else, something they couldn't predict. Her humor, her adaptability, and a laser pointer she had found in her bag. Without skipping a beat, she pointed the laser toward the ground in front of Karnak's feet, and the small red darted across the stone floor, teasing him. "What is this?" Karnak growled, his eyes narrowing as he stared at it. His mind focused entirely on the erratic movement of the laser, distracted by something so simple, so human. Asha smirked. "It's called strategic distraction. You should try it sometime. Makes the fight a lot more interesting." Karnak lunged forward, trying to trap the moving with his intense gaze, but Asha was faster. She dodged and moved with ease, using the laser to make him lose track of her movements. For every time he lunged, she was already 2 steps ahead, the laser leading him around in a dizzying chase. Finally, with a well-timed flick of her wrist, she sprinted past him, tagging him lightly on the shoulder as she reached the astral altar. "Gotcha," she said with a playful grin. Karnak stood frozen, his chest heaving as he realized that he had been bested. Not by superior strength or energy, but by simple human ingenuity. His mind was so focused on the power in the ritual that he couldn't even anticipate the most obvious tactic: humor. As Asha prepared to face the final challenge, the crowd was now abuzz with excitement and disbelief. The odds had been stacked against her from the beginning. She was an untrained, unconventional human, in the presence of ancient beings with powers beyond comprehension. Yet, she had used every advantage: her quick thinking, her ability to stay grounded, and most of all, her unexpected humor, to outwit and outmaneuver her opponents. As the final match loomed ahead, the universe held its breath. Could Asha communicate with the stars and unlock their cosmic power in a way no one had ever expected? Or would she fall short, as so many thought she would? Either way, she was proving one thing: sometimes, breaking the rules is the best way to win. Karna stood in the shadow of the astral altar, watching as Asha continued to defy every expectation. The energy of the ritual pulsed around him, but his thoughts were elsewhere, consumed by a single, overwhelming question. How was she doing it? He was no fool. Karna had trained for centuries in the ancient ways of his people, the Xenon, who believed that the stars were not to be played with or misunderstood. The stars were not some cosmic game. They were the very embodiment of order, strength, and discipline, and only those who could master themselves could truly commune with their power. For millennia, his ancestors had perfected the ancient rituals, and his training had been relentless. Yet this human girl, who had not even undergone the basic rites, who had no knowledge of the cosmic energies he had spent lifetimes learning command, this girl had somehow become a genuine threat. The arrogance that had once simmered in him now burned into something darker, something much more personal. How? He muttered under his breath, his voice like the grinding of stone. It wasn't just that Asha was winning. It was the way she did it. A fan against Zodar's cosmic winds. A laser pointer against his own overwhelming strength. The other competitors, ancient and powerful beings, had all respected the rules. The ritual was sacred, and each challenge was designed to test mastery, control, and a deep connection to the stars. But Asha, she wasn't playing by those rules. She wasn't even trying to follow them. He clenched his fists, his eyes narrowing as he watched her walk past, her face betraying no sign of the struggle others had endured to reach this point. This is not how it's meant to be. Karna thought bitterly. She doesn't understand. She's mocking everything we stand for. The more he observed her, the more the anger simmered inside him. To him, and to the other elders, the ritual was sacred. It was a rite that had been passed down through countless generations, a sacred connection to the stars that could only be unlocked through discipline, effort, and sacrifice. There was no place for casualness in the cosmos, no room for untrained amateurs to simply stumble their way into success. And yet, Asha, she had done just that. She's not breaking the rules, he muttered under his breath, the realization dawning like a heavy weight. She's breaking the game. The crowd of beings from across the galaxy watched in tense silence. The elders, the seraphim, the Caraxians, and every other species in attendance knew that this moment would decide more than just a ritual. It would reshape the very rules of the universe itself. Asha stood casually at the altar's center, her arms crossed, looking almost bored. Her sneakers scuffed against the stone, and her hoodie hung loosely around her shoulders. She was an anomaly here, surrounded by beings of immense power and untold knowledge, and yet it felt almost like a stroll in the park to her. Across from her stood Karna, his massive, muscular form glowing with a fierce energy that rippled through the atmosphere. His gaze was steely, focused, unwavering. Everything Asha wasn't. Precision was his weapon, tradition was his shield, and his power over cosmic energy was something he had honed for eons. The ritual had been built for warriors like him, beings who had followed the sacred steps to commune with the stars. But Asha, she had no training, no formal knowledge. All she had was chaos, adaptability, and the strange ability to hear the stars themselves. The universe had never seen anyone like her. Karna's voice broke through the silence, a deep growl of frustration. You cannot defeat me, human. You have no understanding of the forces you seek to control. I have spent centuries mastering the stars, and you are nothing more than a distraction. Asha smirked, unfazed. Yeah, well, you keep thinking that. Let me know how your centuries of training work out against someone who just listens to what the stars have to say. Karna's eyes narrowed as he raised his hands, summoning a burst of pure energy that crackled with the power of 1,000 suns. The Xenon warrior was a master of precision. Every move, every gesture, calculated to the finest detail. He unleashed the first wave of energy, a devastating stream of light that could level entire planets. Asha, however, didn't flinch. She stood still, her fingers lazily tracing the air in front of her as if she were conducting a symphony. Then, in a sudden movement, she snapped her fingers and a small orb of light appeared in her hand. With a grin, she tossed the orb into the oncoming blast of energy. To the amazement of everyone watching, the orb didn't just absorb the energy, it reflected it back toward Karna with a twist of its own force. The energy turned and spiraled around him, the chaos of it colliding against his perfectly crafted attack, sending him stumbling backward. The crowd gasped. Karna, the master of cosmic precision, was caught off guard by a simple, unrefined move from Asha. What was that? Karna growled, shaking his head in disbelief as the stars themselves seemed to flicker and tremble in the distance. You've thrown off the very balance of the universe. Asha shrugged, her grin never fading. Maybe the stars don't care about balance. Maybe they just want to have fun. The next exchange came faster, a battle of wills as Karna summoned more energy, pure, unyielding light that surged toward her with pinpoint accuracy. This time, Asha didn't try to deflect it. Instead, she jumped into the air, twisting her body like she was performing a careless pirouette, laughing as the energy streams missed her by inches. "You can't outmove me, Karna," she said, her voice light but brimming with confidence. "I don't need to focus on perfection. I just need to adapt." In the midst of her spinning descent, Asha reached into her pocket and pulled out the laser pointer, the same one that had distracted Zotter during their earlier battle. She flicked it on, casting the small red dot onto the altar's stone floor. Karna, for a split second, locked onto it, his mind unable to resist the pull of something so trivial. For that one moment of distraction, Asha closed the gap, rushing at him with impossible speed, grabbing his wrist and yanking him off balance. "This is how you fight with the stars," Asha said, her voice low and teasing. Her fingers glowed with the energy of the cosmos. "You don't control them, Karna. You listen. You dance with them." The power of the stars surged around her, untamed and free, as she channeled it into a wave of energy, wild, chaotic, and raw. It exploded outward, pushing Karna back, throwing him against the altar's stone structure with a force that echoed to the very fabric of the universe. For a moment, Karna stood dazed, his energy flickering. He had been outclassed not by power, but by creativity and chaos. His training, his precision, all his years of mastery over the cosmic forces, had failed against the unpredictability of Asha's spirit. As she stood victorious, her heart pounding with the energy of the cosmos, Asha turned to a crowd of spectators who had watched this epic clash. "Looks like chaos won this round," she said with a wink. "But hey, it's all about adaptability, right?" And as the crowd erupted into applause, Asha realized one thing. She had just changed the game, the ritual, the stars, the entire cosmic order, and for once, the universe had to listen to someone who didn't follow the rules. The final battle had been fought, and it wasn't about tradition or strength. It was about breaking free from the confines of old ways and embracing a new future, one where even the stars had to adapt. The stars above flickered as Asha stood at the center of the astral altar, a place that had long been a symbol of power, tradition, and control. The cosmic energies that had been summoned in the final showdown still rippled through the air, swirling around her like a living thing. For a moment, everything was still. The tension of the past hours melted away, leaving only the overwhelming realization of what she had done. Asha had broken every expectation, defied every rule, and defeated a warrior who had spent centuries mastering the power of the stars. She had done it not with strength, discipline, or rigid tradition, but with chaos, adaptability, and an unshakable belief in herself. Around her, the vast crowd of beings from across the galaxy stood in stunned silence. The elders, once so confident in their rigid interpretation of the stars, now seemed lost in thought, their eyes wide with a mix of confusion and reluctant admiration. Karna, the Xenon warrior, stood off to the side, his gaze heavy with both respect and bitterness. He had been defeated, not by the precision of his power, but by the very force he had dismissed as unworthy, human ingenuity. As the ritual concluded, the celestial light above dimmed and a soft hum filled the air, signaling the start of a new era. Asha had done what no one had thought possible. She had communed with the stars not through ancient methods, but through her own connection, a raw, unrefined link to the cosmos that was uniquely human. Asha took a deep breath and slowly turned to face the watching crowd. She could feel the weight of their gazes, their expectations, their doubts. But in that moment, none of it mattered. She had redefined what it meant to commune with the stars. She had changed the game. The Othric's elder, Theric, spoke first, his voice heavy with reluctant admiration. You have done something none of us could ever have anticipated. Human. You've rewritten the rules of the ritual itself. Asha smiled softly, the weight of the moment settling in. I didn't rewrite the rules. I just realized that they were never the problem. It's the interpretation of those rules that needed to change. The seraphim beside Theric nodded, their wings shimmering with light. You've shown us something we never understood. Perfection doesn't leave room for evolution. You brought chaos to order, and now we see the stars in a new way. Karna, still recovering from the battle, finally spoke, his voice low but filled with respect. The stars, they speak to you differently. Not with force, but with freedom. Maybe it's time we listen to them differently, too. Asha's smile grew, and she looked out across the sea of alien faces, knowing that this was only the beginning. She had fought for Earth for herself, but in the process, she had unlocked something far greater. A shift in perspective, a break from the past, and a future where the stars were no longer the domain of only the most disciplined and powerful beings, but of anyone willing to listen. As the final echoes of the ritual faded, Asha's heart swelled with the weight of her victory. The universe was full of rules, rules that govern the stars, the rituals, the cosmic balance. But she had learned and now shown that sometimes the greatest strength didn't come from following those rules. It came from challenging them, from realizing that the universe was not a machine to be mastered, but a living, breathing force to be understood, to be embraced. As she stepped down from the altar, the stars themselves seemed to shimmer a little brighter. Asha realized that her journey wasn't over. Earth might have been saved today, but there were still many more stars to commune with, many more galaxies to explore. The universe, for all its vastness, had just learned one important truth. Sometimes the key to the cosmos lies not in perfection, but in the beauty of the imperfect. And as Asha took one last look at the stars above, she whispered, almost to herself, I'm just getting started. As the cosmic energies of the ritual faded into a vast expanse of space, Asha stood at the heart of the astral altar, feeling the weight of the universe shift around her. The stars above shimmered with new light, as though acknowledging her presence, recognizing her connection to the vast cosmos. The crowd had begun to disperse, murmuring amongst themselves, their whispers filled with awe, disbelief, and a dawning realization that the universe was no longer what it had been. The elders, once firm in their control of cosmic knowledge, were now reevaluating everything they had known. Their centuries-old rituals had been upended, their rigid definitions of power and discipline torn apart by a single, untrained human girl. Asha's mind, however, was already racing ahead. Earth was saved, for now, but what about the galaxy? The stars? The vast unknowns that still waited to be explored? She glanced at the sky one last time, the infinite depths of space now holding a new promise. There's so much more to do, Asha muttered, almost to herself. The Othric's elder, Theric, approached her once more, his expression inscrutable. You have opened our eyes to the stars in a way we never thought possible, human. But there are forces out there, forces we've barely begun to understand, forces that may one day challenge everything you've achieved. Asha looked up at him, a smile tugging at her lips. Yeah? Well, tell those forces to line up. I'll deal with them one star at a time. With a final glance toward the gathering crowd, she turned and walked toward the horizon of the alien city. The universe had shifted. The stars had changed. And Earth? It had just begun to realize its potential. But one thing was certain. Asha's journey was far from over. Across the galaxy, scholars and warriors alike were already preparing for what the next wave of cosmic chaos would bring. But there was a new understanding now. The stars could no longer be controlled. They could only be listened to, understood, and perhaps even befriended. As the final echoes of her victory faded, a new message was sent out to the far reaches of space. Earth is just getting started. Let the cosmos brace for what's next. And with that, the stars themselves seemed to whisper back, inviting her to the future and daring the universe to follow. And that's a wrap. If you'd like to hear a story based on a title of your choice, feel free to let me know in the comments. Smiling face with smiling eyes, let's see what adventures lie ahead. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts or the title you'd like to hear next. Your support means a lot.